We are living in a time where urgency meets destiny. There's a divine stirring happening in the spirit realm, and God is calling his chosen ones to attention. Before August 5, 2025, something significant is shifting, not in fear, but in faith. This message is not just another word, it is a divine alert, a wake-up call for the chosen to rise above distraction, above fear, and above complacency. God is positioning his people for an assignment that demands discernment, obedience, and bold faith. This sermon isn't about what the world sees, it's about what God is doing behind the scenes. For those who are called, appointed, and anointed, this is your moment of preparation. Because what's coming will not wait for those who hesitate. It's time to walk in authority, claim your inheritance, and stand boldly in the face of every delay and detour. The enemy hears a sacred difference between being called and being chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen because the chosen are willing to pay the cost. You didn't stumble into this moment by accident. Everything you've been through, every trial, every tear, every closed door, every silent night was God's process of distinguishing you. You have been marked, not by man, but by the hand of God. And when God marks you, he equips you. He protects what he has assigned. There's a reason you've never fit in, a reason you couldn't settle where others could. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God was separating you for something greater. People may have misunderstood you, counted you out, or dismissed your process, but heaven knew what it was doing. While the enemy was trying to discourage you with isolation, God was using that very space to reveal himself in a deeper way. He was stripping you of external validation so you could finally recognize the internal calling. This moment before August 5, 2025 is not random, it's strategic. Heaven has set a divine timeline in motion. There's a spiritual urgency in the atmosphere, and the chosen ones, those who have been tested and trained in the dark, are about to be revealed in the light. But here's the warning: you cannot miss the moment. You can't afford to be distracted by drama, discouraged by delays, or deceived by detours. The enemy's greatest tactic is not destruction, it's distraction. If he can't destroy you, he'll try to delay you by keeping your eyes off the assignment. You've been given insight others don't have, discernment others can't explain, and a burden in your spirit that you can't shake. That's not anxiety, that's divine urgency. It's the Holy Spirit preparing you for what's next. Don't numb it. Don't ignore it. Lean into it. Because there is a window of opportunity that won't remain open forever. When God opens a door, no man can shut it. But if you're not ready, you can walk right past it without knowing. That's why preparation is critical. That's why obedience is non-negotiable. God doesn't reveal his plans to the passive, he reveals them to the prepared. You're not being called to blend in, you're being anointed to stand out. But standing out requires strength. It requires clarity. It requires faith in what you cannot yet see. Every assignment from God demands a decision. Will you trust what he's saying more than what you're seeing? Will you believe his voice even when your environment contradicts it? The moment you say yes to the assignment, all of heaven backs you up. But your yes must be real. It must be rooted in surrender, not ambition. God is not looking for perfect people. He's looking for willing vessels. Some of you are waiting on confirmation, but God is waiting on your commitment. He already gave you the word. He already stirred your spirit. He already showed you the vision. Now it's time to act like it. Speak like it. Move like it. Stop negotiating with the cost of obedience. Stop shrinking when he called you to lead. Stop waiting for others to validate what God has already ordained. When God marks you, he doesn't consult the crowd. He prepares you in silence so he can elevate you in his timing. This is not just about your blessing. It's about your impact. Your obedience will unlock someone else's freedom. Your yes will trigger someone else's deliverance. Your boldness will inspire someone else's courage. This assignment is bigger than you. which is why the resistance has been so intense. Every delay, every attack, every sleepless night. It wasn't just life, it was spiritual warfare. The enemy knows what's coming if you walk in full authority. That's why he's been trying to distract you with petty problems and surface-level fears. But God is awakening the warrior in you. He's igniting the fire again. He's shaking the dust off your purpose. The anointing on your life is not casual, it's costly. It didn't come easy. You bled for it. You prayed through pain for it. You lost friends for it. You questioned everything for it. But even in your darkest moments, you didn't quit. That's why you're still standing. That's why you're still here. Because God wasn't done with you. He was just getting started. And now the time has come. Before August 5, 2025, you will see evidence of what God has been preparing you for. But you must be in position. You must be alert. You must be in alignment. This isn't the season to be lukewarm. It's the season to be bold, to walk in authority, and to operate with the urgency of someone who knows heaven is backing them. You've been marked, and now you must move like it. It's easy to mistake God's silence for absence and his delays for denial. But the chosen ones must understand that divine timing is never wasted time. What looked like a closed door was actually a protective barrier. What felt like unanswered prayers were actually strategic pauses. God never forgot about you, and he never changed his mind about you. The delay was not to punish you. It was to prepare you. There's something sacred that happens in the waiting. It's in the waiting that character is formed. It's in the waiting that you learn how to trust God when you can't trace him. You were never being ignored. You were being developed. Every season of waiting had a purpose. It exposed your weaknesses so God could strengthen them. It stripped away false dependencies so God could become your source. You thought you were stuck, but heaven was working behind the scenes, reordering things, aligning situations, and softening hearts. God was training your spiritual ear to hear him more clearly. He was silencing the noise so that when the breakthrough comes, you'll know exactly where it came from. In the natural, it looked like nothing was changing, but in the supernatural, everything was shifting. If God had released you before you were ready, the blessing would have overwhelmed you. The platform would have crushed you. The exposure would have broken you. That's why the delay came with discipline. That's why the silence was filled with lessons. God needed to grow you into the person who could handle what you were asking for. There's a maturity that only develops through pressure. There's a faith that only grows in the dark. He wasn't being cruel, he was being careful. He knew that if he gave it to you too soon, it would be a curse, not a blessing. You see, God is more concerned about who you're becoming than what you're receiving. Because if you become who he called you to be, you'll be able to steward the blessing when it arrives. That's why the delay had to happen. That's why it took longer than you expected. Every no was protecting a better yes. Every redirection was sending you toward divine alignment. When you understand that, you stop resenting the wait. You start embracing it. You start thanking God for every door that didn't open, for every person who walked away, for every opportunity that passed you by. Because if it was yours, nothing could have stopped it. And if it wasn't, nothing could have forced it. Chosen ones have to think differently. They can't look at delays the way the world does. They must see delays as classrooms, training grounds, seasons of divine mentorship. The chosen ones don't complain in the hallway. They prepare. They don't pout. They pray. They don't retreat. They refine, because they know that delay is often the signature of divine care. God slows things down not to frustrate you, but to fortify you. You are being fortified for what's next. That's why the warfare intensified. That's why the pressure became unbearable. Because you were on the brink of becoming. Becoming requires breaking. And breaking often comes in silence. You've outgrown what once satisfied you. The environments you once thrived in now feel too small. That's not you being ungrateful. That's your spirit recognizing that you've been enlarged in the delay. God stretched your patience. He deepened your roots. He sharpened your discernment. What you used to tolerate, you now reject. What you used to chase, you now discern. That's growth. That's preparation. That's evidence that the delay wasn't empty. It was full of divine shaping. Sometimes God delays the promise so he can detox your perspective. You had to unlearn some things. You had to release old mindsets. You had to see yourself the way God sees you. Not through the lens of past failure or human limitation, but through the lens of purpose and power. The delay was not a rejection, it was a reset. It was God cleansing your soul, healing your wounds, realigning your vision. He wasn't just preparing the place for you, he was preparing you for the place. And while you waited, you didn't realize how much was actually changing. Your heart became softer, your spirit became stronger. You no longer needed validation, you needed vision. You didn't crave applause, you craved alignment. That shift didn't happen overnight. It happened in the delay, when nobody was watching. When you were tempted to quit. When it felt like heaven was ignoring you, that's when God was doing his deepest work. He was forging something in you that can't be shaken, that can't be corrupted, that can't be manipulated. You are coming out of the delay with a foundation that is unmovable. Others may have moved ahead of you. Others may have been promoted while you were overlooked. But don't measure your journey with someone else's timeline. You're not late. You're being launched at the appointed time. God is not bound by earthly clocks or calendars. He moves in seasons and purposes. You were hidden because your assignment required it. Hidden so you wouldn't be contaminated. Hidden so your gifts could mature. Hidden so your motives could be purified. Hidden so that when the time came, you would not only arrive, you would thrive. This is why the chosen ones must stop questioning the delay and start discerning it. Ask God, what are you doing in me during this time? Instead of why is this taking so long? The first question births revelation. The second one breeds resentment. You don't want to miss what God is trying to develop in you while you wait. There are insights, instructions, and impartations that are only accessible in the stillness. The delay is where your roots go deep, where your confidence is no longer in people, performance, or platforms, but in God alone. The delay was also a filter. It exposed who was really for you. It revealed who had the capacity to walk with you. Not everyone could handle your calling. Not everyone could celebrate your elevation. And that's okay. God used the delay to create distance, not to hurt you, but to help you. He was pruning your circle so you wouldn't be distracted when the door opens. He was silencing the voices that would have sown doubt. The delay taught you how to walk with God even when no one else understood your path. Every seed planted in tears during that delay is about to reap a harvest. And it won't be small. It won't be average. It won't be explainable by human standards. Because the longer the delay, the greater the glory. The longer the preparation, the deeper the impact. You didn't wait in vain. You weren't forgotten. Heaven was simply getting everything in divine alignment. The people, the opportunities, the resources, the favor, the timing, all of it had to line up so that when the moment came, it would be undeniable that God had orchestrated it. What's about to happen will be so sudden, so strategic, so supernatural, that it will redeem every minute you thought was wasted. Every day you spent wondering, waiting, crying, hoping, God is about to redeem it. The delay didn't cancel the promise. It cultivated the vessel. The delay didn't change the word. If anything, it confirmed it. Because when God speaks, it never returns void. It always accomplishes what he sent it to do. But sometimes he takes his time, not because he's unsure, but because he's building something that lasts, something that glorifies him, something that transforms lives through you. You didn't just survive the delay, you were transformed by it. And now you are stronger, wiser, and more anchored than ever before. The chosen ones who endure the delay are the ones God can trust with destiny, because they know how to wait without wavering, how to trust without answers, how how to serve without spotlight. And those are the ones God is about to release into rooms they didn't ask for but were born to enter. The delay was not the end of your story, it was the beginning of your emergence. There are moments in life when it feels like your faithfulness is invisible. You've shown up, you've served, you've prayed, you've waited, and yet nothing seems to move. But for the chosen ones, there's a spiritual truth that must be anchored deep in your soul. Favor doesn't follow feelings, it follows faithfulness. The world teaches that recognition comes before reward, but God works in reverse. Before the appointed time arrives, God's favor begins moving quietly and strategically on behalf of the faithful. Even when no one sees, God sees. Even when no one claps, God records. The appointed time is on God's calendar, not man's, and before it strikes, He releases favor to those who stayed when others walked away, who believed when others doubted, and who worshiped when the answer was nowhere in sight. God is not looking for perfection. He is looking for consistency. Faithfulness is not about being flawless, it's about being rooted. It's about continuing to show up even when the outcome is uncertain. The faithful understand that obedience is the seed and favor is the harvest, but the harvest rarely looks like what we expect. Sometimes favor shows up as access, sometimes as protection, sometimes as peace in the middle of chaos. God's favor doesn't always come wrapped in status or spotlight. Sometimes it comes in the form of supernatural endurance, discernment, or preservation from what could have destroyed you. Favor is not limited by location or opinion. It is not dependent on your past, your qualifications, or your surroundings. When God's favor locates you, it bypasses rules, systems, and expectations. It finds you in obscurity. It moves you out of the background. It interrupts protocol. The enemy knows he can't stop God's favor, which is why he tries so hard to frustrate your faithfulness. He wants to wear you down before your moment comes. He wants you to forfeit before the favor finds you. But the chosen ones must understand that favor is not random. It is responsive. It responds to faith, to trust, to obedience, to integrity in hidden places. There is a timing to favor that has nothing to do with earthly logic. People may not see your value yet, but heaven already released the instruction. God is stirring conversations behind closed doors. He is setting divine appointments you don't even know about. There are people being prepared to bless you, advocate for you, open doors for you, not because of your resume, but because of your faithfulness to His voice. That's why you can't stop now. That's why you must keep sowing, serving, giving, praying, because at any moment favor can locate you. Not because you chased it, but because it was chasing you all along. The problem is, we often expect favor to look like elevation. But sometimes, favor looks like insulation. God will shield you from things that others run toward. He'll remove you from opportunities that look good but aren't God. And in the moment, it feels like rejection. But it's really favor that preserves your purpose, favor that protects your calling, favor that keeps you from settling for what's comfortable instead of waiting for what's divine. The chosen ones must discern that favor is not always glamorous, it is often strategic, and its full impact is rarely understood in the moment. But once the appointed time comes, you'll look back and realize favor was surrounding you all along. Before David was anointed king, he was in the field, forgotten by family. But the oil didn't fall on the brothers who looked the part. It waited for the one who was faithful in the unseen place. That's how favor works. It doesn't respond to appearances. It responds to alignment. And once it finds you, nothing can block it. The job can't block it. The system can't block it. People's opinions can't block it. When God decides it's your time, favor will grab you from the field and bring you to the front. But the key is this: David didn't chase the oil. He stayed faithful to the sheep. That's where God met him, and that's where God will meet you. Faithfulness creates an atmosphere where favor thrives. When you're faithful in little, God can trust you with more. The problem is, most people want favor without the faith walk. They want increase without integrity. But favor doesn't flow through shortcuts. It flows through surrender. That's why some people with talent are still stuck. while those with tenacity are rising. God honors consistency over charisma. He's not looking for the loudest, he's looking for the loyal. Those who pray in silence, who serve with no spotlight, who obey without explanation. There's a level of favor that is only released through perseverance, through showing up when your emotions don't match your expectation, through pressing when everything around you says quit. Favor shows up when you've outlasted the test, when you've proven that your yes to God wasn't conditional, when you've demonstrated that you're not in it for what you can get, but because you trust who He is. That kind of faithfulness gets heaven's attention. That kind of endurance becomes a magnet for divine interruption. When you're faithful, you stop chasing favor and start attracting it. You stop striving and start stewarding. God doesn't anoint random people. He anoints those who have proven they can carry what He's about to release. Some of you have been in seasons where it looked like nothing was happening, but in reality, God was testing your stewardship. Would you stay committed even without recognition? Would you give your best when it didn't look like it mattered? Would you honor God in secret when the platform wasn't visible? That's the kind of character that God builds His kingdom on. Favor is often connected to preparation. When God's favor shows up early, it's not to bless your comfort, it's to build your capacity. Sometimes favor shows up before the appointment because God needs to equip you for the appointment. That's why doors may start opening before you feel ready. That's why people begin to take notice even while you're still in development. It's not about you being fully formed, it's about you being fully faithful. God will place you in rooms where your faith has to speak louder than your credentials, where your obedience matters more than your experience. That's the realm of divine favor. And that realm is reserved for those who remain faithful when it didn't make sense. Some of the greatest breakthroughs are preceded by the loneliest seasons. But that isolation was not punishment, it was preparation. God didn't forget you, He was forming you. And now the shift is beginning. Heaven is turning its spotlight. The favor that's been stored up is being released. Not because the date on the calendar says it's time, but because your development says you're ready. Favor shows up early because God trusts your stewardship. He knows you won't mishandle the access. You won't idolize the platform. You won't forget the process. When favor locates the faithful, it accelerates what man tried to delay. Suddenly, years of obscurity are overturned by moments of divine visibility. Suddenly, opportunities come that you didn't apply for. Suddenly, people start saying your name in rooms you didn't even know existed. That's not coincidence. That's the fulfillment of God's word. That's divine favor meeting divine timing. But it didn't start when the door opened. It started the moment you decided to be faithful, even when the door was closed. Your tears didn't go unnoticed. Your sacrifices weren't wasted. Your late nights and early mornings, your relentless obedience, your unshakable praise, it all counted. It all mattered. God was watching. Heaven was recording. And now the favor that was assigned to your faithfulness is on its way. It's not coming because you're lucky. It's coming because you were loyal. Because you stayed true to what God told you, even when it cost you comfort, relationships, or understanding. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to manipulate it. You don't have to fight for it. All you have to do is remain faithful. Favor knows your name. Favor knows your address. Favor knows your timing. And before the appointed time even arrives, God's favor will locate the faithful, interrupt the timeline, and deliver the promise. There comes a time when the systems of this world begin to shake, when fear begins to spread faster than truth, and when chaos tries to drown out clarity. In those moments, the difference between those who collapse and those who conquer is not status or resources, it's identity. The chosen ones are not exempt from the storm, but they are equipped for it. They are not spared from pressure, but they are strengthened by it. When the world panics, the chosen prevail, not because they are better, but because they are anchored in something the world cannot shake. They move by faith, not by fear. They hear God's whisper above the world's screams. They discern truth even when lies dominate the headline. The chosen walk with a different authority. While others look to man for answers, the chosen turn their eyes to the hills from where their help comes. They don't rely on headlines to determine hope. They don't follow the crowd, they follow the cloud. The reason panic doesn't consume them is because peace isn't optional for them. Peace is a weapon. Peace is a posture. Peace is evidence that their confidence isn't based on what's happening around them. It's rooted in who is living within them. When the world starts shaking, the chosen stand still and know that he is God. In a world that reacts, the chosen respond. They respond with wisdom. They respond with prayer. They respond with discernment. Panic screams, do something now, but the Spirit says, be still and listen. The chosen don't just move, they are moved by divine instruction. They don't react out of emotion. They respond out of revelation. That's how they prevail. Not through hustle, but through hearing. Not through anxiety, but through alignment. They understand that chaos is often a sign that heaven is about to reveal strategy. That shaking is not always destruction. Sometimes it's divine disruption, a necessary removal of what can be shaken so that what cannot be shaken may remain. The chosen are often misunderstood in times of crisis because they don't sound like everyone else. They speak hope when others spread fear. They declare victory when others predict collapse. They look calm when the world is in confusion. But that's not denial, it's divine confidence. Confidence in the sovereignty of God. Confidence in the word that has already gone forth. Confidence in the promise that if God said it, no storm can cancel it. This confidence isn't arrogant, it's anchored in past experiences with God, anchored in the track record of a faithful Father, anchored in a peace that passes understanding, a peace that makes no sense in natural circumstances but makes perfect sense in the Spirit. The reason the chosen can prevail when others panic is because they live from a different kingdom. They operate by kingdom principles, not worldly patterns. When others hoard, they give. When others hide, they declare. When others fear scarcity, they trust in God's provision. The world teaches survival, but the Spirit teaches surrender. And surrender is where true power lies. The chosen don't have to control everything. They just need to stay connected to the one who controls it all. Their stability isn't tied to the economy, the government, or the trends of the day. Their stability comes from an unshakable kingdom and an immovable king. In every generation, God raises up a remnant that refuses to bow to fear, a remnant that knows how to pray in crisis, how to praise under pressure, how to proclaim truth when it's unpopular. That remnant is not the loudest, it's the most faithful. They've been tested, they've been tried, they've walked through the fire and still carry the fragrance of worship. These are the ones God is positioning right now. These are the ones who will not be moved. The world is watching for answers, and God is pointing to his chosen. Not perfect people, but surrendered people. Not famous people, but faithful ones. Not the loudest voices, but the clearest ones. When the world panics, the chosen carry perspective. They don't just see what's happening, they see why it's happening. They see God's hand working in the details. They know that every shaking exposes what was unstable, reveals what was hidden, and prepares the way for something better. The chosen understand that crisis is a setup for clarity, that God allows shaking not to punish, but to purify, that in the most unstable times, the most significant shifts can take place. While others shrink back, the chosen step forward, not recklessly, but intentionally, with wisdom, with boldness, with humility, because they're not here to blend in, they're here to stand out. The enemy thrives in confusion, and when panic spreads, it becomes a playground for lies. But the chosen carry the light of truth. They walk into dark places and bring perspective. They interrupt fear with faith. They don't just survive the season, they shift the season. They bring order into disorder. They speak peace into storms, and they do it not in their own strength, but in the authority of the one who called them. Authority doesn't come from title, it comes from time spent in God's presence. And that's what separates the chosen. While the world scrolls for answers, they've been seeking the face of the one who already knows the end from the beginning. There's a supernatural